let us look at the counterpart, the synchronous motor. These motors may not be seen too much in homes, but they are quite popular for high precision speed applications in industry. These motors run at a constant speed, which does not change with the torque that is being generated. The efficiency is around 90% for sure, which is also a good advantage. The motor can easily work with leading and lagging power factors. The downside is that it needs two inputs. One is the three-phase AC input to the stator, and the other one is the DC input to the rotor. Okay. It's a doubly fat motor, as I already said. And another disadvantage is that motor is not able to start by itself. You have to do something. Despite all these disadvantages, the fact that it can be used at a constant speed without having to worry about the torque, and that it can support a large range of power factors are going to make it a very popular motor in many applications. Construction is quite similar to that of a synchronous generator. You have three-phase windings on the stator. You have rotating poles on the rotor. These poles can be salient or they can be non-salient. You need to supply DC current to the poles to make them produce much larger flux. The three-phase windings on the stator produce a rotating flux inside the stator. The speed of that flux is known as synchronous speed. We denote it by capital N with the suffix small s. The rotor initially is not rotating. Hello, am I audible? The rotor is in the beginning not rotating, but the flux produced by the rotor tries to catch up with the rotating flux produced by the stator. It does not become successful in that because of the inertia of the rotor. The synchronous flux is rotating at a very fast speed. So by the time the rotor starts moving in one direction, the polarity of the stator flux changes in the opposite direction. The rotor tries to move in the opposite direction, and by the time that happens, the polarity again changes for the stator flux and so on. So the rotor essentially tries to start but cannot. You need to give it an initial start, and then it definitely starts and catches up with the synchronous speed of the flux produced in the stator. Hello, am I audible? Hello? All right. So constructionally, we are looking at the same machine as we saw in case of synchronous generators. But the functionality is reversed. The stator, of course, is laminated so that eddy current losses are reduced. I have already said all this, that the poles on the rotor can be salient type or non-salient type, which is also known as cylindrical type construction. There is a possibility, strong possibility, that this motor will never be able to achieve an equilibrium speed, despite the fact that in theory it should. So hunting means it is always constantly trying to hunt for the stable position. That's a practical problem, but it's manageable using things like damper windings. Principle of operation, I think I have already outlined. So they have written the same thing here in 3 different bullets. The fact that motor is not able to self-start is also written here. Yeah, same thing as I was mentioning. The rotor produces a non-rotating flux, at least in the beginning, and the stator produces a rotating flux. These two fluxes, in fact, the non-rotating flux tries to catch up with the rotating flux. And if you give initial start, this will happen. The rotor will start rotating exactly at the same speed at which the flux generated by the stator is rotating. That is called synchronous speed, and we get a constant speed operation. The angle between the two fluxes matters. We'll come to that little later in some other document maybe. When the rotor is rotating exactly at the same speed, which is the speed of the stator flux, we call it locking. There's a lot of starting methods used, and they are listed here. Some of them are very obvious. DC motor can be used to get the initial start to the rotor. Induction motor is something I have not discussed yet, so I'll come back to the third method later. Damper winding, let's see. Basically, this means the windings that are on the pole are supplemented by extra windings called damper windings. These windings are short circuited in the beginning, which is actually like making the motor an induction motor, so that the motor starts. And when motor starts, you basically disable these windings. In case of DC motor starting, it is obvious that you're providing an external rotation in the beginning at least. And then you remove the DC motor. The synchronous motor will continue to rotate even after removing the DC motor. Starting as an induction motor essentially is something we'll talk about little later when we talk about induction motors. Power angle. In case of synchronous generators, I had mentioned this word. In case of synchronous motors too, you will see this word frequently uh, encountered. This is one way of looking at it. The rotor magnet position with respect to the rotating flux position, that angle is defined as an angle called delta. This is called the power angle. Other way to look at it is the phase angle between the phasors for the terminal voltage and the back EMF. Okay. We saw all that in case of synchronous generators. In case of motors, synchronous motors, even the name load angle or torque angle will be seen many times instead of the name power angle. Now, performance characteristics of synchronous motors are of several varieties. If you plot armature current versus field current, you get a V shape. There's a mathematical proof for it. We may do it when we go to equivalent circuits. But essentially, what you get is for a particular value of field current, you get a minimum armature current. And that depends on the nature of the value and nature of power factor. Full load curve, when motor is operating at full rated load, is what you see at the top. And below that, you start seeing other possibilities. This is one very important characteristic of a synchronous motor. The plot between load power factor and the field current is also important. It is called inverted V type of curve. Again, nature of power factor matters, nature of load also matters, and so on. Okay. Hunting is already mentioned as a problem seen in practice with synchronous motors. Motors is trying to find the equilibrium position. It is not able to do that all the time. And it may lead to practical problems. At least be aware of that. This problem is avoided using unique techniques like use of damper windings and so on. Especially if the load angle changes suddenly, this may become a serious problem. The motor might stop, fully stop, if you don't do something in advance. Yeah, undesirable effects caused by hunting are listed here. Methods to control hunting. Flywheel, as we saw in case of synchronous generators, are useful here also. Damper windings also. At least remember the names. You may not understand everything, especially the words like flywheel, I don't think are known to you at all. Mechanical engineers can understand that very much. One special advantage or special application of synchronous motor is that if the load power factor is bad, a synchronous motor can help in improving the power factor. This is one very standard technique in industry for improving power factors. Of course, the motor has to be connected to no load. Applications. One application is because it can work with both leading and lagging power factors. It can be used for improving power factors in real life. That's one application for sure. And wherever you need constant speed operation in industry, this could be a very good fit. Rolling mills, chippers, mixers, pumps, compressors, etc., are where synchronous motors are frequently seen. Okay, so this is almost done. One more document written slightly with a different tone, but capturing the essence for sure. Important characteristics of synchronous motors. Induction motor, we have not spoken about yet, but take it from me, that would also be constructionally quite similar, except that in rotor, the conductors will be short circuited instead of being supplied by DC. So, bullet number 1 is essentially referring to that. Okay. Bullet number 2 is also reasonably clear, I think. Starting is done by making it an induction motor in the beginning and then letting it become synchronous as it picks up speed. Or other method is to give it an initial mechanical push. We have seen that in the previous slide. The synchronous speed ns is given by this famous equation 120f divided by p. P is the number of poles in this stator. Even number, of course. F is the frequency at which the three-phase supply is being delivered to the stator. F is measured in hertz. Poles, of course, have no units. 120 into frequency in hertz divided by number of poles will give you ns in RPM. One simple calculation is a 24-pole synchronous machine at 60 hertz will require 300 RPM. I think we have done this calculation in case of synchronous generator. Okay, can forget this. Characteristics, I think in the previous document we have already seen V shape, inverted V shape, etc. That is all repeated here. Here is the pictorial 3D description of the construction of a synchronous motor. The rotor is fitted inside the stator and DC input is being given to it.
Shaft.
Shaft is being supplied mechanical, shaft will be the one which will be driven by the rotor at a constant speed and will supply mechanical requirements. Okay, at least that much you can figure out. Equivalent circuit, I will be looking at it in my own notes as well. It's quite straightforward. It's similar to that of a synchronous generator. We draw it per phase. You have the back EMF, or if you want, you can call it armature EMF, EA. You have the terminal voltage, whatever you want to call it. I call it VT. And in between, you have a series RL circuit. Series resistance means the resistance of the armature winding per phase, and series inductance has got two components in it: in self-inductance of the armature winding and the inductance created by armature reaction. Those two added give you the so-called synchronous reactance XS. Maybe it's not very clear here, but we'll be calling it XS. And on the DC side, of course, you have a constant voltage feeding a simple RL circuit. That's straightforward. The calculations on the AC side will have to be done using complex numbers for sure. VT will be supplied in, and EA will be a result of that. Phase diagram, etc., we will see anyway when we do numerical calculations. The phase angle between VT and EA is the load angle, delta. That's for sure. Here they are showing a variable field control, which can help in changing the speed of the motor, I suppose. But the equivalent circuit essentially is the same as we saw previously. Numerical calculations, we'll be doing them separately. I'm not doing it here. V curve, we have already seen in the previous document. A lot of equations for calculating torque, etc. I will be looking at them in my own notes. Okay, so let me move forward. V shape, inverted V shape characteristics are there. Methods of starting, we have already seen most of them in the previous document. This is something that I had included in one of my previous documents. Difference between induction motor and synchronous motor. We will be revisiting this later when we talk about induction. And a lot of numerical examples are given here. I'll try to do them separately. Let me close this document. I'm not going to show you this one fully, but at least in passing, let me mention that there is a very interesting book by an Indian author, Thareja. Its PDF files are available on the net. There's a full chapter on synchronous motors in that book. You may want to go through it. It's not essential that you do, but it has very good additional info for sure. Only problem is sometimes I find calculation mistakes in the solved examples. So you have to be a little careful about that. But otherwise, it's a very good chapter too. Now, some solved problems. Before we go to solving numerical examples or numerical problems on synchronous motors, let's revisit the equivalent circuit once again. These are the symbols I'm going to be using. The back EMF is something that I will be denoting by EA. The terminal voltage will be denoted by VT. Armature current, it's all per phase by the way. Armature current is IA. Armature resistance is RA. The reactance due to armature reaction is XAR, and self-reactance of the armature winding is XA. XAR and XA add together to give you the so-called synchronous reactance XS. Equivalent circuit is basically identical to that seen in case of synchronous generators. But here the input is VT. In case of generators, input was EA or EB, whatever we were calling it. Here, no generation of voltage is happening. You are supplying the voltage. In case of generators, you are generating the voltage, EA. These are the formal definitions of the parameters. EA is back EMF or armature voltage per phase. IA is the armature current per phase. RA is the armature resistance per phase. XA is the armature sorry, not inductance. It should be, there's a mistake here. Armature reactance per phase. And XAR is the reactance due to armature reaction per phase. Synchronous reactance is XAR plus XA. Generally, you are given XS directly rather than individual values of XAR and XA. Power angle is the phase angle between EA and VT. Now, some numerical examples. I know it's barely readable. Let me read it out loud. This problem says a 480 volt, this means line to line voltage, 480 volts, 60 hertz, 400 horsepower. That means 400 into 746 watts is the rated power output in all the three phases combined, by the way. So a 480 volt, 60 hertz, 400 HP, zero point 0.8 power factor leading, that is the load power factor leading, 8 pole, delta connected, synchronous motor has a synchronous reactance of 0.6 ohm per phase is assumed, okay? And negligible armature resistance, RA is 0. Ignore the motor's friction, windage, and core losses. Assume that EA, that means magnitude of the back EMF or induced voltage, is directly proportional to the field current, IF. In other words, assume that the motor operates in the linear portion of the magnetization curve. That is what we assume anyway by default. And let's say we are given magnitude of EA equal to 480 volt when IF is 4 amperes. Now, part A, calculate the speed of the motor. Part B, if the motor is initially supplying 400 horsepower at 0.8 power factor lagging, keep in mind, the rated power factor is 0.8 leading, but actual power factor at which you are using it is 0.8 lagging. Calculate the magnitudes and phase angles of EA and IA. And see how much torque is the motor producing. What is the torque angle? How near is this value of torque to how close is this value of torque to the maximum possible value of torque for the same IF setting? The first thing is, of course, draw the equivalent circuit. And keep in mind that it's a delta connected motor. So line voltage will be same as phase voltage. Anyway, before doing that, let's calculate the speed, which is easy enough, I think. Speed, synchronous speed formula is simple, 120 F by P. You are given number of poles, you are given frequency. 8 is the number of poles, 60 hertz is the frequency. Plug in the values, you get the speed of the motor as 900 RPM. Part A is quite simple. Part B. If the motor is initially supplying 400 horsepower at 0.8 power factor lagging, So the power being drawn is the rated value. Yeah, 400 horsepower is the rated value, and we are drawing that. But we have changed the nature of the power factor from the rated, which is leading, to lagging in our case. Anyway, our job is to calculate the value of EA and IA in this case. Now we will need the equivalent circuit for sure. Because mechanical losses are negligible and iron losses are also negligible, the total mechanical output power will be exactly the same as total electrical power. Okay. And input electrical power is same as output mechanical power, which is 400 horsepower. So 400 into 746 watts, which gives you 298.4 kilowatt. That's the input electrical power because the losses are zero. Now, the input power in case of three-phase system is always given by this formula, whether delta system or star system, the formula remains the same. We have proven it in the past. Square root of 3, this is a combined effect of all the three phases. And the rated power is always the combined effect of all the three phases. That's the way it is written on the nameplate. So 298.4 kilowatts should equal square root of 3 magnitude of VLL, which is the line voltage magnitude, multiplied by magnitude of line current, multiplied by power factor. Now, line voltage and phase voltage are the same because of delta connection. So we can write this as square root of 3 Vt magnitude into IL into cos. And then we calculate IL magnitude from there. So line current magnitude turns out to be 448.65 amperes. Now phase current in case of delta systems is 1 upon square root of 3 of the line current. So armature current magnitude will be actually 448.65 divided by square root of 3 amperes, which is 259.03 amperes. This is only magnitude of armature current. We still don't know the phase. Now the phase angle, obviously, you are operating at lagging power factor, so it will have to be negative value. And cos inverse of 0.8 is what you need to do. So phase angle will be minus 36.87 degrees. So the actual value of IA, including the phase, is 259.03 ampere approximately, with an angle of minus 36.87 degrees approximately. There's a lot of logic involved in doing these calculations. You got to be mindful of that. If I had given you a star connected motor, it would have been a very different kind of calculations. Okay. Now, to calculate the induced EMF, you simply apply this formula, which is simple enough to figure out based on the equivalent circuit. You need to plug in all the values and make sure there is no calculation mistake made by me. Whenever you multiply two complex numbers, it is good to have polar forms involved. When you add or subtract, it is good to have rectangular forms. That's my recommendation. So EA, complex value, done by me in details here, turns out to be, it's all RMS values, by the way. Okay. Turns out to be 406.24 volt with an angle of minus 17.82 degrees. This is the angle delta. The power angle is this, minus 17.82 degrees. This is not equal to the power factor angle of the load. Not in all cases for sure. Okay, so part B is done. In part C, you are supposed to calculate the torque. So first thing you do is calculate the omega m value. Omega m is 2 pi nm divided by 60, right? Nm is ns, essentially, which is 900 rpm. We have calculated already. Okay, so based on that, you calculate the omega m value. Oh, m means motor. That's all. Otherwise, I could have called it omega also. I don't mind actually. The suffix small m is generally used by many authors when they are talking about the motor output. So I'm maintaining that. I could have called it output power PO and output torque TO. That is also okay. Nothing wrong. So omega m turns out to be 94.2478 radian per second approximately. And output power we have already seen is 400 horsepower multiplied by 746 watts, right? So we use that. Yeah, we had got, I think, this value 298.4 kilowatt as the output power. So divide that by omega m to get the torque in Newton meter. The value turns out to be quite high, 3166.12 Newton meter. Now, are we operating in a safe zone? Is this torque not too high compared to what maximum value the torque could achieve? That is the last question. How much is the torque produced? What is the torque angle? We have figured it all out, okay? How near is this value of torque to the maximum possible value of the induced torque? Induced means torque, mechanical torque. Okay. IF is not changing, so that part we don't have to worry about. So maximum possible value of torque will mean maximum possible value of power, output power divided by omega. And what is the maximum possible value of power? Let's look at the formula for total power. Oh God, where is it? Yeah, here. Maximum power will be happening when cos phi is 1. So square root of 3 multiplied by Vt multiplied by IL. Okay, and you have all the values with you. So use that formula to get the maximum possible power output of this motor. And from there, you basically, in fact, it is very easy to see that the current magnitude, the armature current magnitude is nothing but magnitude of EA divided by XS, right? Because armature resistance is 0. So using that also, I have written this formula for maximum torque. You can verify this yourself. Cos phi has been put to 1, essentially. The total torque, total maximum possible torque is this. 10344.81 Newton meter. And we are operating at 3166.12 Newton meter. That means almost 1/3. So we are safe enough, I think. Very safe operation, yes. We are operating at almost 0.3 of the maximum rated or maximum possible torque. There seems to be no danger to motor in terms of torque at least. I would expect you to go through these documents by yourself carefully and point out mistakes, calculation mistakes in particular, if any. Now, conceptually, I could think of a variation of this problem. Suppose I change the field current to 2 amperes. What would happen? It's a good question to ask. I'm not going to answer it right now, but I'll leave it open for future discussion. Okay, next problem. Yeah, here we go. Something similar to what I was asking. For the motor in problem 1, if the magnitude of EA is increased by 30%, which will be done only by increasing IF, as far as I can see. So if EA is increased by 30%, what will be the new magnitude of the armature current? And also the new power factor. It will not be 0.8 anymore, that's for sure. It may not be, we don't know whether it's going to be leading or lagging. That's also a question to be answered. I'm assuming that speed will not change because we are not changing number of poles or number or the frequency. So part A of problem 1 will not change, even if EA has been changed to 1.3 of the value that we saw in problem 1. In problem 1, we saw EA as 406.24 with an angle of minus 17.82 degrees. Now they are increasing it by 30% in problem 2. So for 406.24 multiplied by 1.3, an angle I think is going to be the same. And no, we don't know the angle, sorry. We are only talking about magnitude, I think, right now. We don't know what the angle will be. Let's see. Okay, so let's look at the solution. Assuming constant power, fine, fair enough. And remembering that EA sine delta, we are talking magnitude of EA here, is proportional to power. We have seen that already. Assuming terminal voltage is the same and current is same because power is same, etc. This is the proportional behavior that you see for the output power or input power. We are ignoring the losses anyway. Okay, so if you want the constant output power, essentially EA sine delta should remain constant in both cases. That means in the second case, when magnitude of EA has gone up by 1.3 versus the first case where magnitude is what it was in problem 1. And if the delta values are delta 2 and delta 1 in the corresponding cases, you can write this equation because power is constant. And once you write this, the rest is reasonably easy. Magnitude of EA2 divided by magnitude of EA1 should be sine delta 1 divided by sine delta 2. We know delta 1 already. We know EA1 already. In fact, we know the ratio of magnitude of EA2 and magnitude of EA1. That ratio is 1.3, right? So I plug in all the values. and I calculate the new power angle or torque angle. Sine delta 2 turns out to have a value negative 0.2354 approximately. From there, I calculate delta 2 as minus 13.62 degrees. So by increasing IA by a factor of 1.3, I have reduced delta from minus 17.82 degrees. Actually, I have increased delta, algebraically speaking, from minus 17.82 degrees to minus 13.62 degrees. And new armature current is then going to be okay to figure out. So you know terminal voltage, which is the same as in problem 1. You know the new current, which is 1.3 times the previous value. Sorry, not new current, new EA, which is 1.3 times the previous value. And then you know the angle of the uh, second value of EA also. So you plug in all that, and you know the value of synchronous reactance anyway. So plug that in also there, and you do the calculations to get the new armature current complex value. It's a hair-raising experience to try to do these calculations on calculator. I'm always nervous. Suppose there is a mistake, what will happen? So double check, triple check if time permits. The new armature current or the second armature current turns out to be this one. You can see that the angle of the armature current has also changed. It is now minus 14.97 degrees. In problem 1, it was minus 36.87 degrees. So yeah, there's a drastic change in that also. And new power factor, of course, will be cosine of minus 14.97 degrees. And it is going to be lagging because there is a minus sign on 14.97 degrees. So 0.966 lagging will be the new power factor. In problem 1, it was 0.8 lagging. V curve, I've already told you about. It is the plot of magnitude of IA versus magnitude of EA. Now, equations for torque and power, let's look at them once again carefully for synchronous motor. For the sake of discussion, in this case, we will assume armature resistance to be 0. And if you look at the equivalent circuit that we had drawn in the beginning, if RA is 0, you have simply XS, which is the sum of XAR and XA in the circuit. And you may want to see this derivation in books also. I've just put a gist of it here. Basically, let's assume that Vt is the reference voltage. That means it has 0 degree phase shift. Terminal voltage is the reference. EA will have an angle delta, and let's assume it's minus angle for the sake of argument. So Vt and EA phasors are straightforward, right? And the difference between them will be IA access, obviously, because of the Kirchhoff's voltage law applied to the equivalent circuit. This is how these three phasors are drawn here. Now, armature current has to be figured out based on the equation we have already seen. And that will have a different angle, phi, which will not be equal to delta. So that can also be drawn on this phasor diagram as the fourth phasor. And the relationships among various phasors and angles are shown here. This is called the phasor diagram of a lossless three-phase synchronous motor. Actually, synchronous motor is three-phase. It's never single-phase anymore. So let's say synchronous motor. Now, studying this phasor diagram critically, we will see that EA sine delta gives you this vertical, which I have drawn as a straight line with two arrows on both sides. And IAXS cos phi would also give you the same vertical if you look at the diagram carefully. So equating these two is the crux. EA sine delta should be equal to IA excess cos phi, assuming RA equal to 0. Once you have done that, the input power or mechanical power output, they are both the same because losses are 0. That is given by 3 times VT cos phi. Okay. I'm assuming IA per phase and terminal voltage is also per phase. So VT cos phi and the entire thing multiplied by 3 gives you the total power, assuming balanced system. So P in can be written as 3 VT cos phi into IA, and IA can be taken from equation 1. So the resulting formula for mechanical power output is 3 VT EA sine delta divided by XL. It's a well-known formula. And torque, of course, can be written also very easily by dividing PM by omega m. And only magnitudes of the voltages are being considered, that's for sure, no phase angles. So you see that the output power or output torque depends on the torque angle or power angle delta, besides many other things, of course. This formula will be required a little bit later also, I think. The maximum value of torque is going to be obtained when delta is pi by 2. And you can figure out the value very easily. The maximum power would also occur at the same point. So the maximum possible power that you can get from this machine, assuming ideal conditions, of course, is 3 VT divided by XS. And the corresponding maximum torque is 3 VT divided by XS, where only magnitudes of VTA and EA are considered. And then 3 VT divided by omega MXS is the maximum possible torque. Now, there's some more here written, but I think you have already seen this. Synchronous motor is not self-starting. We know that. The rotor needs an initial push. Once it starts rotating at a speed close enough to ns, which is equal to 120 F by P, its flux locks with the rotating flux produced by the stator windings, and rotor keeps rotating even without the external push. Okay, something I have said already, but it's being repeated. Synchronous motor runs at a constant speed, ns, which is equal to 120 F by P. Synchronous motor needs two electrical inputs, DC input to the rotor and three-phase input to the stator. That's it. Reminder, basically, at the end. Let's look at this one. Yeah. This is another set of problems on synchronous motors. A 75 kilowatt, that means rated output is this, rated output power is this. 3.5 means three phase. It's a Y connected 50 hertz, 440 volt cylindrical rotor. So salient poles are not being used. It's a high speed rotor, it seems. 440 volt is the line to line voltage supplied to the stator, magnitude, of course. With P equal to 4, number of poles is 4, operates at rated conditions with 0.8 power factor leading. Okay. The motor efficiency, excluding field and stator losses, is 95%, and synchronous reactance is 2.5 ohm per phase, of course. Calculate the mechanical power developed and the torque produced. And then the next one is for the motor considered in problem 1, calculate the armature current and the back EMF. And problem 3 says for the motor considered in problem 1 and problem 2, calculate the power angle. Okay, a lot of things to be done. And problem 4 says for the motor considered in problems 1, 2, and 3, calculate the maximum torque, which is also known as pull-out torque. That is possible. 4 problems. Okay, let's look at number 1. First thing to do is calculate synchronous speed, which is quite easy, 120 F by P. We are given F as 50 hertz, P as 4. So the motor is operating at 1500 RPM. That is why you are not using salient poles. You are using cylindrical poles, cylindrical rotor, which has electromagnetically simulated poles on it. Because at such a speed, salient poles will start coming off. Now, mechanical power developed will be actual output power divided by efficiency. Efficiency includes all the losses in between. Efficiency takes care of that, actually. That's why losses are not given. They have instead given you the efficiency. So with that definition in mind, the mechanical power developed is the rated power divided by the efficiency. Rated power is 75,000 watts. Efficiency is oh yeah, 95%. So the actual mechanical power developed is 75,000 divided by 0.9 watts, which turns out to be 78,947 point something watts. And since we know the synchronous speed, omega is easy to figure out. Omega m, omega of the motor is 2 pi ns divided by 60. From there, omega m works out to 157.08 radian per second. So the total torque produced by the motor is also easy to figure out. 78947.37 divided by 157.08. And the answer will be in Newton meter. It turns out to be 502.59 Newton meter. So that was problem 1, I think. We did not need to use reactance. Synchronous reactance was not needed here at all. Okay. Calculate the mechanical power developed and the torque produced. Yeah, we have done that. Now in problem 2, you take problem 1, and now you are supposed to calculate armature current and the back EMF, EA and IA. Now you will need to use the equivalence. Mechanical power produced is same as electrical power because losses are negligible. And we know this well-known formula for input electrical power in terms of line voltage and line current and power factor. Power factor is also given to us. So using all that, you calculate the line current. And by the way, it's a star-connected motor. So line current and phase current will be the same. Let me check. Yeah, it's a Y-connected motor. Yes. So IA will be same as IL or ILL if you. That's why I have taken IL value straight away as IA. And for power, sorry, load power factor angle will be cos inverse 0.8. It's a leading power factor, so you'll get plus 36.87 degrees. So the armature current will be 129.49 with plus 36.87 degree amperes in the complex domain. Once you know that, VT is easy to figure out based on the equivalent circuit. No, sorry, VT is known anyway because it's a star connection. VT will be 440 divided by square root of 3. And we will assume zero phase shift in VT. Yeah, it's written here also. So VT will be 254.03 volts with 0 degree phase length. Now you calculate back EMF as VT minus J access IA. It's per phase, of course. You need to plug in all the values carefully. Okay, so the answer for back EMF after all these long calculations are completed is very surprising actually. 517.78 volts with minus 30.01 degree. Terminal voltage is not that high, but back EMF is quite high. This is what happens in these kind of machines, depending on the nature of the power factor. Torque angle is minus 30.01 degrees, and the back EMF magnitude is 517.78 degrees. I'll request you to double check the calculation, but most likely it is correct. Now, problem 3 carries on with the same task, but now they want you to calculate the power. Oh, that we have done already. Problem 3. Yeah, delta is already calculated. Not an issue at all. Problem 4. What does it say? For the rotor considered in the above problems, calculate the maximum pull-out or pull-out torque. We have the formula for maximum torque, so we use that directly. Basically, that means delta has to be pi by 2. Maximum possible power is this when delta is pi by 2. EB's magnitude is known, VT magnitude is known, XS is known. Delta let's put as pi by 2 or 90 degrees. You'll get maximum possible power. and then you divide it by omega m to get the pull-out torque. The practical side of the story is that if we force the motor to generate a torque which is more than the pull-out torque, motor may be damaged. This is why it's important to figure out pull-out torque. Basically, after that, machine pulls out of operation. It might even be damaged. So never exceed torque requirements beyond the maximum rated value. In fact, you should have a safety factor of maybe 2 to 1 or something. In fact, in one of the previous problems, we had a safety factor of almost 3 to 1. The torque that we were using in that problem was only 30% of the maximum possible torque. That is very safe. Now, lot more here. Problem 5 says repeat problem 1 by assuming delta connected motor. Problem 6 basically assumes the same details but delta connected motor. So I would like you to do it yourself. I could have done it. Actually, I have done it for you, but it would have been nice if you would tackle it yourself. Basically, what would happen for delta connection is some things are similar. No, they're not changing. And I've given you only the final answers. The nature of line voltage versus phase voltage relationship will change here. That's the only difference, really. In delta connection, the line voltage magnitude is same as the phase voltage magnitude. In case of star connection, line voltage magnitude divided by square root of 3 was the magnitude of the phase voltage. Okay, and also in case of star connection, line current magnitude is same as phase current magnitude, which is armature current magnitude. Each phase has one armature, one generator, in fact. So keep that in mind and try to solve these problems. I think I have given you only, actually, no, I've given you some details also. So try doing it yourself. Try double checking my calculations. I'll leave it to you. Okay, last one. Let's see what does it have. One or two more problems. A 60 kVA, 220 volt, 60 cycle alternator. Okay, we are back to alternator. It's a synchronous generator now we are looking at. This problem solution is given, and let's see it carefully. There may be some equations that I have not given you yet. Let's see carefully. A 60 kVA, 220 volt, 60 cycle alternator has an effective armature resistance of 0.016 ohm. Actually, it looks like it's not a three-phase generator at all. It's a single-phase generator, the way it looks. Okay, let's see. And an armature leakage reactance, that means armature reactance of 0.07. Calculate the value of the induced EMF when the machine is delivering rated current at unity power factor. Also calculate the power angle. Yeah, it's not a three-phase system at all. It's a single-phase alternator. Actually, that is also very popular, by the way. In fact, when you see marriage party going on the road, they are supplied power by a generator. That is actually a single-phase alternator that they are carrying with them, which is driven by a diesel machine, diesel engine all the time. So this is that case. There's no three-phase system here at all. So don't worry about line voltage, phase voltage, etc. All the voltages are phase voltages. It's a single-phase system. Okay, good. Equivalent circuit, by the way, doesn't change. You are not given any armature reaction, so we will assume that that the synchronous reactance is equal to the reactance of the winding itself. Armature reactions effect is not there. XS is simply XL or XA rather 0.07. Once you have drawn the equivalent circuit correctly, the rest is all calculation. EB or EA, whatever you want to call it, is the induced EMF. We know that. I'm writing per phase, but it's not necessary. It's a single phase system. IA is armature current per phase, RA is armature resistance per phase, XA is synchronous reactance per phase, VT is terminal voltage per phase. Fine, okay. Now the solution. This is a single phase generator. Yeah, I figured it already because they have not mentioned three phase in the description of the problem. So don't assume three phase if it's not given. Okay, now it's all calculations. What do they want? Try to figure out okay, EA or EB. That is so we know VT, and I think because it's being used at the rated value, so we will know IA also, and unity power factor is also given. So all that should help. Yeah, simply this power factor is 1. So 60,000 watts equal to 220 IA. 220 volts, I think, is the rating. Yes. 60,000 watts equal to 220 IA. That gives you the armature current. 272.73 amperes. And 0 degree phase shift because it's a unity power factor load. So terminal voltage and armature current will have no phase shift between them. Once IA is figured out, EB is relatively straightforward. EB is VT plus IA multiplied by RA plus JXA. Oh, actually, yeah, XS is XA anyway, so it's not a big issue. Here I'm saying XS, here I'm saying XA. They mean the same thing because armature reaction is ignored. So plug in all the values. You are given RA, you are given XA, you have IA value. From there, you should be able to figure out EB. And the power angle is the angle of EB, which is 4.86 degrees. Okay, let's see. They have not given you number of poles. Otherwise, we would have been able to figure out the speed of the rotor also. Right? Anyway, right. This problem, can't even read it properly, I think. We'll ignore that. Let's go to problem 3, which is more readable. A 1492 kilowatt unity power factor, three phase. Now three phase is mentioned. Star connected, 2300 volt, 50 hertz synchronous motor. We are back to synchronous motor. Has synchronous reactance XS equal to 1.94 ohm per phase, and RA, armature resistance, equal to 0. Compute the maximum torque produced by this motor if it is supplied from a constant frequency source, and if the field excitation is constant at a value which would result in unity power factor. Essentially, what they're saying is unity power factor is involved. Neglect all losses. Omega is 2 pi f. That's simple, right? Say 50 hertz system, yeah. Fine. Total kVA is given as 1492. Unity power factor is involved, so kVA is same as kW. kVA per phase will be one third of the total kVA. So you get 497.3333. It's a star connected motor. So terminal voltage will be 1 upon square root of 3 multiplied by the line voltage, which is 2300 volt. Yeah, right here. 1327.9056 volts. My calculations are too accurate actually. You don't have to do 4 digits. 2 digits should be enough. Anyway, rated current, easy to figure out from the power rating or from the kVA rating. You will get 374.5 something amperes. Because power factor is 1, it's not involved at all. Total IA phasor will be 374.5246 and with 0 degree phase shift because unity power factor is involved. EB is straightforward because RA is 0, so equation is simpler. Go through the calculations. They look horrendous, I know, but we have no choice. Back EMF turns out to be 15 point something volts with a torque angle or power angle equal to minus 28.81 degrees. And then, of course, maximum torque, you know this equation very well. So plug in all the values. Actually, you first calculate maximum power, and from there you calculate the maximum torque. It turns out to be 9855 point something Newton meter for the three phases. For one phase, it is one third of that.